little cares, little duties that cheat people out of big opportunities. And it happens every day. And I don't know what to do about it. Some people have the incredible ability to major in minor things. Maybe we just need to be reminded, it's not the hours you put in, it's what you put in the hours that count. Guy comes home at night, exhausted, falls into the chair and says, I've been going. Here's the key. Don't mistake movement for achievement. Busy. That may not be the deal. It is the doing what that's the deal. Some people are busy all day long doing figure eights. I mean, they're not making much forward progress. Keep coming back around where they started. Learn to separate majors and minors. Here's something that requires minor time. Here's something that requires major time. Here's the most important time in a salesperson's career. Time in the presence of the prospect. That's the most important time. That's called major time. Here's minor time. On the way to the prospect. Making plans to see the prospect. That's called minor time. In the presence of the prospect. That's major time. Keeping files on the prospect. That's minor time. Thinking about prospects and how it's going to go in the future. That's called minor time. Here's major time. In the presence of. So you've just got to arrange your sales career so that most often you're in the presence of. Not on the way to. Not keeping books on. Not thinking about. Not making records for, but in the presence of. So now a salesperson finally suddenly says, well, I can see now where I'm spending most of my time on the minor stuff. And that's what takes, out of a $200,000 potential career, the guy's left now with $60,000. Because the $60,000 here earned by being in the presence of. But all the rest of the money is missing because he spent so much time on the minor things that didn't count that much. Now, the minor things are important, but they're minor things. Major in the presence of. If you're not good at something, get somebody to take care of it. Instead of, delaying all the time trying to do it yourself. If you've tried to balance your checkbook for about a year or two, that's long enough. Just put the money on some accountant's desk and say, look, take care of this for me. It doesn't have to be very much, just so it's taken care of. I used to keep promising myself I'd keep the books. Finally, I gave that up. And back then, it only took me an extra $50, $60 a month for some accountant to keep the books. I said, no, I'm going to save the $50. You can't believe what I started losing in productivity because I tried to save the $50. You're not going to change, even though you promise yourself year after year. Just then make arrangements to see that it gets done. Just save yourself all the grief of promising, and never doing it. Either you do it, and if you have to do it, now you have to do it. But hey, sometimes you can let somebody cover for you and get it done so that you can concentrate sometimes on more essential, more important things. Analyze how you are and see if you can at least be covered. If you're going to be involved with people any amount of time or any number of people from whatever walks of life, you've got to understand what we call the 20%, 80% rule. This is something you learn to work with and not against. Right? That's what success is. Success is moving in the opposite of the normal negative downward pull. Life that springs from the seed really is moving in the opposite direction. Gravity wants to pull the seed down, but sure enough, the seed being pulled down by the soil, right, comes to life, takes root, starts to grow, and which way does it grow? Up, right? It gets the roots and the nourishment, but it grows up. It pushes its way against gravity. It moves up, and that's what success is, that's what life is, of movement in the opposite direction. It seems like 20% of the people do 80% of the business, and 80% of the people do 20%. It's just one of those strange things about life. And we can ask whys all day long. A lot of things you don't ask why. Let the obvious be your best teacher. Almost any enterprise, right? Whether it's a business or a club or whatever. Sure enough, 20% of the people do 80%, 80% do 20%. This is not something you change. This is something you work with. Now, here's some of the key points in understanding the 20%, 80% rule. The pull is in the opposite direction. And it always is. So,
Guess who wants 80% of your attention? The wrong percentage. The 80% of whatever enterprise you're working with, if you got a group of people going, 80% of them want 80% of your time. They say, well, we're the 80%. But see, you've got to learn to resist that. Now, you do it diplomatically. You do it with intelligence. But if you want to be successful, you got to do it. You've got to give 80% of your time to the 20% and 20% of your time to the 80%. Success is learning to move in the opposite direction of the normal negative pull. Somebody says, well, now how do you do that? Well, now here's where you got to get smart. Here's what I learned to do with the 20%, 80% rule. I learned to give the 20% individual time and the 80% group time. I just figured that out. Say, well, these 80% are only producing 20% of the business. So I've got to figure out a way to talk to them by groups. Now I can talk to an individual that's doing the high production, but I can only talk to the groups in these collection of people that are doing the small production. Now guess who wants your individual time? The wrong percentage. What you got to do is just diplomatically move in the opposite direction. You just diplomatically learn how to just give the group time to the 80%, individual time to the 20%. Now, every leader must have some listening time to what's going on in the field, what's happening with the people. Here's what you must do with your listening time. You must give 80% of your listening time to the 20%, and 20% of your listening time to the 80%. Now, guess who wants 80% of your listening time? The wrong percentage. So you just have to learn to be diplomatic.
Getting in charge, mastering the situation. This is the big challenge. I remember some companies I started years ago. I'd start the company, I'm running the company. First thing you know, the company's running me. And along about that second year, I say, hold it. I used to be in charge. And now I'm out of control. I used to have it on the run. Now it's got me on the run. And the same is true whether it's a company or an enterprise or whether it's the day. The key is you just got to take charge and say, I'm going to start getting a handle and taking charge of my day and not let it get out of control. Because it's so easy to be persuaded and distracted by, things that use up time, take up time, and then first thing you know, it's all out of control. Guess what? It never ends, this trying to balance your life with everything. Time management might be to step down to something easier that doesn't harass you with the constraints of time. Here's what will put you in the top 5%. A detailed plan for the use of your work time. We call it a game plan. Put your future activity, first of all, on paper before you put it on the street. I ask somebody, what are you going to do the next 6 months? They start telling me. I say, no, don't tell me. Show me. Show me what you're going to do the next 6 months. See, if you can show somebody what you're going to do the next 6 months, somebody knowledgeable can pick up the errors. They can show you where you could make some changes. But see, it's hard to correct conversation. Show me. This is why you need to think on paper. Put your game plan on paper. Priorities. And a constant review of your goals. Because that's how you determine how to use your time. Whatever priorities you're going for. I used to be at the office and I got to take my family to the beach. It's been so long. What does my family think? We got to get to the beach. We got to get to the beach. So I'm thinking beach while I'm at work. Now I get to the beach with my family. I'm thinking, I should be at the office. I should be at the office. What am I doing here at the beach? Now my family's been out of shape. Because yes, I'm at the beach, but I'm also at the office. So here's what I learned to do. At the office, be at the office. And at the beach, be at the beach with your family. Don't mix the two. Little girl said to her mommy, said, Daddy never plays with me. Comes home and he's got this briefcase and he disappears and works on his papers and tells me to go to bed. And she tried to explain, said, look, your father loves you very much, but he's so busy at work. He can't get everything done. He has to bring it home. She said, why don't they just put him in a slower group? If you haven't got time for your kids, you should consider a slower group. Guy works for a company, says, I got to own one of these. Finds out, you've now got to work 24 hours a day all around the clock, and you got to worry about all these people. The guy says, heck with this. I'm going back where I used to be. I played golf 3 times a week and made 3 times as much money as a salesperson. Heck with this running a company. That's the deal. Don't put yourself in the straitjacket of something that's not to your choosing and not to your liking. Now, if you really want the prize, to become a multi-millionaire and run a company, fine. Then you got to pay the price. But hey, it's strictly up to you. There's no requirements here. Where is it written? There is no law. Concentration, where you zero in. If you concentrate, many times it takes a lot less time when you concentrate than if you get distracted. And, it takes a whole day because of the distraction. But if you concentrate, it could take an hour instead of a day. It could take a few minutes instead of a half a day. Concentration. I used to give that illustration. I read this little article in Reader's Digest. It said, wherever you are, be there. Concentrate there. I used to try to design my day in the shower. And, I'm not even awake yet, and I'm trying to write a letter. What I finally learned to do is enjoy the shower. Some guys in business, right, they're already at the office at the breakfast table. Plenty of time to do the business when you get to the office. You can't compose the next letter eating your cornflakes. Wherever you are, be there. Concentrate there. Learn to say no. It is so easy, especially now in a social society, to just, be pulled everywhere with social obligations. You say yes, 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 yes. And finally you find yourself so overloaded with your calendar that it eats up all the time. So learn to say no politely. It's easier to say, I don't think so, but if that changes, I'll call. Then say, oh, yes, and then try to figure out ways to make the call and not to make it. One of my colleagues says, don't let your mouth overload your back. Because it's easy to just obligate, wanting to be nice, wanting to be pleasant, wanting to please, right? Just pulled in too many directions by saying yes too easy, too frequently, and find yourself in a box. You must designate your time. And some of the time that you designate, you must not let anyone steal. Have a certain time to solve problems. We say problems after 3. Just set them aside. Now, you don't ignore them, but you just set them aside in a certain time frame. All the problem calls, you just call back after 3 o'clock and just go right through them. Now, also, in setting them aside till 3 o'clock, problem comes in at 9 o'clock. And you say, hey, 3 o'clock, Mr. Rohn's going to get on the phone and make all these problem calls, right? Call back all these answers. Guess what usually happens between 9 and 3? Somebody calls back and says, hey, tell him not to call. We've already got it worked out. But see, if you take that call when it comes, sure enough, now you got to spend time. No matter how good you get, you're still going to make some errors in judgment. Learn to ask questions before you launch into some tirade or launch into some personal seminar. Sometimes you talk for a half hour, ask a couple of questions, find out you just wasted the previous half hour. Here's what you should have been talking about. So here's the key. Ask questions up front. John isn't making sales. Say, hey, call John in. I'll tear him a new page. Say, well, before you do that, we better ask, why isn't he making sales? Someone says, well, he's not getting up early and getting out in the marketplace. Says, get him in here. I'll teach him some get up early stuff. Well, before we do that, we better ask what? One more question. What? Why isn't he up early and out in the marketplace? So we call John in and say, hey, John, it's got to be something personal. You're not up early. You're not out in the marketplace. He says, yes, I never thought anyone would ask. You just ask, right? What is it? Rather than launching into something, save the time. Learn to ask questions up front.
Time is the inexplicable raw material of everything. With it, all is possible. Without it, nothing. The supply of time is truly a daily miracle, an affair genuinely astonishing when one examines it. You wake up in the morning and lo, your purse is magically filled with 24 hours of the unmanufactured tissue of the universe of your life. It is yours. It is the most precious of possessions. No one can take it from you. It is unstealable. And no one receives either more or less than you receive. In the realm of time, there is no aristocracy of wealth and no aristocracy of intellect. Genius is never rewarded by even an extra hour a day. And there is no punishment. Waste your infinitely previous commodity as much as you will, and the supply will never be withheld from you. Moreover, you cannot draw on the future. Impossible to get into debt. You can only waste the passing moment. You cannot waste tomorrow. It is kept for you. You cannot waste the next hour. It is kept for you. You have to live on this 24 hours of daily time. Out of it, you have to spend health, pleasure, money, content, respect, and the evolution of your immortal soul. Its right use, its most effective use, is a matter of the highest urgency and of the most thrilling actuality. If one cannot arrange that an income of 24 hours shall exactly cover all proper items of expenditure, one does muddle one's whole life indefinitely. We shall never have any more time. We have, and we have always had, all the time there is. We've all been given the same amount of time. I remember when it finally occurred to me that rich people have about 24 hours a day and poor people have about 24 hours a day. What an incredible discovery. I said, wouldn't that make me curious? Here's the rich with the same time and the poor with the same time. I wonder what the difference is. And here's what life is all about: discovering the difference.
Life is not just the passing of time. Life is a collection of experiences, their frequency and their intensity. The frequency and the intensity of experiences. That's what life is all about, that collection. So don't get trapped into wasting time. Not that watching a television show isn't a waste of time. You know, there's plenty of good stuff. But don't use it as your only source of life experience. Don't miss the game. Don't miss the show. Don't miss the performance. In the time away from your labor, in the time away from your commercial obligations, your commercial work, engage in all of this stuff. Don't miss, don't miss. Collecting every day, every week that's possible. Collect. So that your experiences now infuse your commercial time, your working time, your selling time, your recruiting time, building an organization time, constructing an enterprise time. If you will do that, not postpone all of this till some later time, as soon as, but weave it in. That's what we call a good life. You've got to take time to be with your family. You've got to take time to be with the people who are important to you, designing your life in those respects. Get away. Recharge your batteries. Do some growing away from your enterprise. Then when you come back to your enterprise, after you have taken this time to balance your life, you will find that on the job, working on your enterprise, things will really go much better.